Hi, I'm Cindy, and I'm here to talk to you about my ideal classroom setting. However, before we get started, I want to talk to you about my own experience as a child in a primary school. And in this school, we had a direct instruction approach, and this means that the teacher, she went to the board at the beginning of class, would teach the entire class as a whole, and we would work on worksheets together as well as workbooks, and we'd also do this in small groups and on your own. And also in this classroom, we had lots of activities that included art and crafts, just so we weren't continuously doing worksheets all day. We were able to have a creative mind. Also in this school, we had our specials throughout the day, and those specials could include art, science, computers, library, or gym. And also we had 2 recesses until you got to 3rd grade, and this was great because it allowed for the younger ages to continue to play at various times of the day, because it is important at the young ages to play and learn through their play. And so this is going to affect me in my own classroom because I was taught through direct instruction, so therefore I feel like that is the best way to teach a child. However, through my experience in ECE 300, I was exposed to emergent curriculum, and through this curriculum you're able to not only teach what they need to learn, but also teach what is interested to them. And I think it is really important to teach students what they're interested in, because if you're teaching them what they're not interested in or not tying the activity to something they're interested in, they're not going to take in all the knowledge that is available to them. So I really think it is important to have something that does interest them. So therefore, I would probably implement a curriculum that is a mixture of both the direct instruction from my childhood and emergent curriculum from this course that I saw. In my classroom, I want to provide the best and safest learning environment for all my students, because it is important that they feel safe when they come into school every day and that they can truly learn to the best of their abilities. I also want to provide basic fundamentals and the knowledge for each subject, because they're in 1st grade, you're first touching all these different subjects, and therefore they need the basic knowledge in order to build off of that. So in order to succeed in other grades that they move on to, they need a good understanding of these basics and these fundamentals. So I think that is important that I want to implement into my classroom, as well as teaching them how to be a group member and work with others and be a citizen in the society. So I think it's important to have class rules and class values, and to show students how they should interact with one another and interact with adults, because it is important, and at a young age this is when they're learning how to behave. So it's good to set standards of acceptable behavior and non-acceptable behavior. I believe children learn through different areas. One would be modeling, in which they watch others perform actions or behaviors and then implement that themselves because they saw a positive outcome. Also, they learn through observation and inquiry, where they have the materials and they're playing with them and learning on their own, as well as talking with others, with peers and adults, and they're giving information back and forth to increase the information gained. Also, I think it's important to note that they do learn the best when they are interested, because if they're more interested, they have a better attention and will take more information in than when they're not interested. It's also important to note that when they are learning, they're also developing. And if they are developing physically, it's not only physical development, it's going to affect their social, emotional, and cognitive as well. In my classroom, I decided to go with a curriculum that resembled the Bank Street approach curriculum, because it allowed for a teacher-directed learning while also a child-centered learning. I was able to do this because in this curriculum, the teacher picks the topic of the lesson and then has learning centers set up around the room, and then the child gets to pick the learning center they go to, and so that they can learn in the best way that suits them. Also in my curriculum, I would make sure it was integrated so that they can apply what they're learning in reading and apply it to math, or apply what they're learning in math and take that to science. I also think it's important for the curriculum to build off of it, which means that they can take what they learned one day and apply it to the next day and the day after that. In my classroom, I would like to have a warm and inviting atmosphere where students are excited to come in and feel safe when they do come into school every day. In my physical environment, I would like to have lots of color and posters around the room so that when the students come into the classroom, they get excited and ready to learn and participate for the day. I would also like to have an area to hang the students' artwork up and also classwork so that they can feel proud in what they are doing at school. I'd also like to have different learning centers and stations such as a library, building area, crafting area, computer station, with also a dramatic play area. And I also like to have an open area for group time so that we can come together and discuss what we learned for the day and what we took out of the lesson. I'd also like to have just lots of material around the room and in the station so that they can fully have a creative learning station. In my classroom, I'd like to use teaching strategies of modeling, and at the beginning of the lesson, I would have everyone gather together so I can tell them what the lesson is, and then I can tell them the learning centers, and then model to them how to use the different materials that are provided to them at these different learning centers. I would also use observation and questioning, and through observation, I could see if a student is struggling in an area so that I can change the content for them so that they can learn everything and at the best of their ability. I would also like to use questioning to ask them what they're doing, what they're thinking, what they have questions on so that I can further their learning, as well as having big group time. So at the end of the lesson and learning center, we would come together and everyone would talk about what they learned, as well as having them either do individual group or small groups during these learning centers. In my classroom, I would assess the students by not giving them a test because I feel that in first grade, they're just beginning to express their thoughts on paper, so it'd be hard to give them a test. So I would do an authentic assessment in which I would take notes while I observe them at these learning centers and also keep a portfolio of their work so I can show that they are developing and keep track that they're developing at a good rate. Guidance strategies that I would use in my classroom would be modeling. I would use modeling to show good behavior myself by showing how to respect others and how to work with others and be a group member. I think this is important because students do learn by watching others, and it's important to create a safe environment for all. I would also make sure that I am abiding by these classroom policies so that they know that it's important to abide by the classroom rules. I would also use feedback to encourage students to continue the good behavior while also talking to the students that had behavior that was unacceptable and ask them what the situation was, why they felt that they should behave in that way, and how they could change their behavior for the next time they're in that situation. I would also use logical consequences, and this would be either natural or teacher consequence. And a natural consequence, it would be I would tell a student to stop rocking on their chair, and they continue to rock on their chair and they fall back. The consequence for not listening to me was that they fall back on their chair. However, not all behaviors have a natural consequence, so I'd have to issue a consequence, such as if a student hit another student, I would have to either issue some kind of consequence, such as take away recess for the day or take away recess for the next 2 days. My classroom follows DAP because I am creating a caring learning community, allowing the students to work with one another, setting consequences for behavior, and displaying good behavior myself. The curriculum is also comprehensive and allowing them to develop in all areas. It is also integrated, and I can allow them to reflect on their learning activity while also have them not only brush the surface of the topic but go into depth. Also, I can take note during while I'm observing to make sure that if the student's struggling, I can change the content to them. Also, my assessment is appropriate for their age and is making sure that they are progressing developmentally and educationally. So that concludes my video. So I hope you learned a lot about what my ideal classroom looks like and what I want to implement in it. Thank you so much.